Good morning. Welcome to the Empowering Minds Mental Health Podcast, where we explore the power of self-discovery, growth, and the pursuit of your best self. I'm your host, Jennifer Moore, and today my special guest is Coach Becky Upchurch, founder of Higher Good Coaching. She has always been driven by a desire to help others find their true potential through coaching. She's discovered that we all have an inner voice that guides us towards a life we truly want, one that excuse me, aligns with mental wellness. So join me as we dive into this conversation that will hopefully inspire, uplift, and support you on your journey to becoming the best version of yourself. Thank you for agreeing to come on this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. All right, so we're just going to jump into the questions. What led you to focus on helping women say no without guilt or fear? And how has this transformed the lives of your clients?
So I was not always focused on working specifically with women. And I think that that kind of came to me a few years back when I started realizing that, I believe that we all need support and coaching and opportunities for growth, and we all have things that we need to, work through in our lives. And we all could use support in growing our dreams. And we all, so it's not that women are the only people who can benefit from the work of coaching, but what I started realizing was that women seem to have a rather, in my opinion, unique set of things that kind of are barriers to them moving forward, or maybe are things that keep them stuck, that I personally don't think are as common in men. And I think it has to do, especially in the US where I'm located, with how we are socialized, and how women are taught to be. And so for me, I started realizing that, oh, women kind of have these very unique needs. And I have, obviously, as a woman, I felt connected to that. But I also have a lot of empathy around this because I will see people struggling. And from an outside perspective, sometimes it's really easy to see why they're struggling and how they can get out of it,
Mhm.
but also recognizing that sometimes the reason we can't see those things in our own lives is because we are basing our decisions on the whole of our lived experience. So, how we were socialized, how we were raised, the roles that we were taught and that were modeled for us. And so, kind of that idea of, hey, I'm really drawn to doing this work with women and to really opening their minds to possibility. And then switching into kind of, I started out as more of a general coach. Mindset was my jam. I love all things mindset, and I talk about a lot of different mindset topics. And then about a year and a half ago, I had this aha moment where I think it was on a coaching call with one of my coaches, and she was coaching someone else, and she talked about really focusing your work on, kind of the things that you do well or the things that you excel at. And in the world of coaching, it's the idea of, I'm not your coach because I'm the expert on your life. I'm a coach because I have a skill set to help you be the expert of your life and help you step beyond barriers. So really, it sounds strange to people who are not familiar with how coaching works, but you can coach people on things that you're not an expert on, because you have the skills to coach. So it really never crossed my mind to think about where my expertise lies, and to lean into that. But I just had this aha moment where I realized that so many women struggle to say no. And I feel like saying no is something that I am a superstar at. And I have not always been that person. But I think anybody, if you ask anybody who knows me, like, hey, does Becky struggle to say no to things if she doesn't want to do them? Or if she, and they would be like, absolutely not. She will be the first person to say, thank you for that invitation. I will not be accepting. I love you. Goodbye. Um, and so recognizing that, oh, hey, not only do I have these coaching skills to support people, but I also have some more, kind of expertise. And that when you combine those things together, I really felt like it could have a really strong impact in the lives of women, which I know kind of comes into your second part of the question about transforming lives. And something that is really important to me is the idea that transformation, I think when we think about transformation and what that looks like, we hear these stories of people that it's like, I was living one life and then I created a totally different life. And yes, sometimes that is what transformation looks like.
Mhm.
But I always joke that I'm also the coach who's not saying, well, in order to transform your lives, you have to end your marriage, or you have to quit your job, or you have to do all of these extreme things. Sometimes the transformation, A, it starts within ourselves.
Mhm.
And B, sometimes people don't want to change their whole lives. Maybe they are, happy with much of their life, but they're feeling a sense of dissatisfaction and they can't figure out why. Sometimes the transformation isn't about, oh, well, I have to leave this relationship. It might be, I have to nurture this relationship in a different way, or I have to engage in this relationship in a different way. And that can be a romantic relationship, a family relationship, a collegial relationship, a friendship. Sometimes our relationship around our work. It might be that somebody comes to me. One of the first clients I ever worked with was looking for new employment. So it could be that, but it could also be, hey, I just want to find joy in what I do again professionally, or I want to find opportunities to grow. So, really looking at transformation very holistically and recognizing that we can transform in a variety of different ways. And I think sometimes transformation feels scary because we feel like we have to maybe give up things that we don't want to give up.
Mhm.
And so, making it clear to people that the way that we transform is by stepping more into who we are at our core and at our foundation. And so, what that looks like really varies from person to person. For a lot of women, it's having time for myself. And I use the example sometimes of a client reaching out from vacation, and this was somebody that had multiple things going on professionally and a family and community involvement and all these things going on. And so for that person to reach out and say, hey, I'm on this vacation and I'm relaxing and I'm not worrying about it, that was a transformative
Mhm.
experience for that person. Whereas for someone else, it might be, hey, I had this massive health goal that has been eluding me for years. And through coaching work, I've been able to change my life and my approach. And I've had people come to me and say, I see how you've changed and you've changed your health and your wellness. So it really is kind of an individual thing, which I think to me is part of the beauty of the work of coaching, that it's not about turning yourself into what other people think you should be or what a coach thinks you should be. It's really about who do I want to be? I use this term a lot, and this is kind of how I make my decisions. It's how do I want to show up for myself and for others in the world? And I think the answer to that is different for all of us, but I think that we can figure out the answers and then live into them in practical ways that don't feel like we're upending our whole world, but that at the end of the day will really lead us to living a life that we want to live.
Thank you. Um, Transformation is definitely a powerful thing. I was one of those women who always felt like I had to say yes to everything, like yes to helping everyone or whatever the case may be. And I had to really sit down and get to the root cause of why I felt like I had to say yes to almost everything. And once I did, it did transform my life because I wasn't as stressed, I wasn't as burnout. And
Mhm.
so now I do feel comfortable saying no. It wasn't easy for me at first to say no because I would kind of offer an excuse as to why I was saying no. But now I can just
Mhm.
say, well, no, no is a complete sentence for me now. And I feel
Yep.
okay with that. But it takes some transformation in your mindset to get to that point. So, all right. So next, I wanted to ask you, how do you guide women to overcome the initial fear or hesitation that comes with making significant life changes?
So you just touched on this in what you just shared about your own experience, and it's the mindset piece.
Hmm.
And this is one of the things that's so funny about being a mindset coach. And I think a lot of people, that sounds very woo-woo to a lot of people, like, oh, mindset, give me the practical tips. And I think having both are important.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, if I have somebody who comes to me who says, I am the textbook definition of a people pleaser, or I can never say no, give me all the strategies. I can give them every strategy known to man for how
Hmm.
to say no. And if they have a mindset that saying no is bad, that it makes them a bad person, that they're an awful friend or partner or daughter or whatever it may be, they can employ those strategies and then they're going to feel terrible about it. So
Mhm.
even if they continue setting the boundary, they're going to feel like garbage, and we don't want that. That's
Mhm.
not a good way to live. But I think more often than not, what happens is they're going to feel terrible. And then when someone inevitably pushes back on those boundaries, because that is normally what happens when we start setting boundaries for the first time,
Mhm.
we take it as, oh, there must be something wrong with this boundary, when really it's no, people are just not comfortable with you saying no because you've never done it before. So it feels uncomfortable to them.
Mhm.
So they're aiming for the status quo. So they're trying to get back to where we were. So if you're going into it with the mindset of, oh, this is not the right thing to do, and then somebody gives you a little bit of pushback, what usually happens is we say, okay, no, 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 I'll do that thing after all. It's fine. It's if somebody says, hey, can you bake 12 dozen cookies for the bake sale? And no, I'm sorry, I really can't. I've got a really hectic schedule this weekend. I don't have time to bake 12 dozen cookies. And then they say, oh, but it would be really great. And everybody really loved those cookies you made last year. And suddenly my mindset is, oh, they're going to be mad at me.
Yep.
That if the bake sale fails, it's going to be all my fault. So then, okay, no, I'll find time to make 12 dozen cookies, even though I have 37 other things to do on Saturday.
Mhm.
So it really starts with the mindset piece. And depending on the person, that's going to look a little bit different. I think there are some kind of universal themes around why women struggle to say no. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with socialization. What does it mean when you're a little girl? What does it mean to be a good girl? Right.
Mhm.
For many of us, it meant don't be vocal, right? Stay quiet, stay agreeable.
Mhm.
Um, I think also many of us are socialized to believe that being a kind person and being a person who is strong and boundaried and vocal are not the same thing. And I would argue that you can be simultaneously exceptionally kind and have exceptionally strong boundaries. I think that I like to think that that is who I am. I think I like to think that I am a person who is very compassionate and loving and caring, but also I can say no with ease. And some of that is because I've identified the mindsets that make me feel guilty. And so that's kind of the first thing for women who are trying to set boundaries and it's not a comfortable thing for them, maybe it's new for them,
Mhm.
is to address the mindset. But first, we have to figure out specifically what is the mindset that is getting you stuck. Because it might be one of those universal, like, oh, I'm not a good person. But it might be something really specific. It might be that maybe there's something deep in your mind that you're not even aware of that's coming up. Maybe it's, I don't ever say no to my friends because this one time when I was 8 years old, I said no to a friend and then they ostracized me and I got mean girled for 3 weeks. And I forgot about it, but it's still in there somewhere.
Mhm.
So, really taking the time to sit down and figure out what exactly is that swimming in around in my brain that is making me feel so uncomfortable in this moment, and really digging into that so that we can get the mindset where we want it to be, or at least heading in the right direction, so that when we do start incorporating some different strategies, we're kind of addressing the issue from both sides.
Okay. So I want to leave this last few minutes with you. So how can people reach out to you if they want potential coaching services? I don't know if you've had any books you've written or anything like that that you would like to share with the audience who will watch this later on.
So I always tell people the best way to reach out to me is just to send me an email. And my email is simple. It's Becky at highergoodcoaching.com. And that's higher with a GH, like higher purpose. Um, or I am on Facebook as Higher Good Coaching. I'm on Instagram as Becky Upchurch _. And I do have a free resource, and I think it is linked on my webpage, which is highergoodcoaching.com. I think I have it in my bio on Instagram. I can also share it with you if you want to put it in the show notes or
Yes,
anything.
please.
And it's called the People Pleaser's Guide to Saying No. And even if you're not a people pleaser, it can help you really identify where you might need to say no, and how to get started in that process of getting comfortable saying no to people when there are things happening that you maybe don't want to be a part of and you feel like you have to. If there are things that you're taking on that you're like, I really need to stop taking this thing on and I just don't know how to do that,
Mhm.
that guide can certainly help you with that.
Oh, that sounds like a good tool. I have to look at that myself. Okay. Do you have any final thoughts or something that you want to resonate with the viewers?
I think the biggest takeaway that I would like to share is just to know that it is possible to shift your way of being. If you have spent many years, I feel like a lot of us who have experienced being people pleasers or struggling to set boundaries or struggling to say no, we feel like, well, this is just how I am. This is just who
Mhm.
I am. This is just the way I'm wired. Um, and I would say, yes, and you can change that. Even if you are on the extreme end of people pleasing and you've never said no to anything or anyone in your whole life, you absolutely can learn to create change.
Mhm.
It's not going to happen overnight. I don't, I'm not going to lie and say like, oh, you're going to snap your fingers and it's going to all go away. But with the right tools and the right focus, I absolutely believe that it is possible. So anybody who's listening and thinking, I could never make that happen, um, have faith in yourself, trust that you can, and reach out if you have questions.
Thank you for those words of encouragement, and thank you for your time today. And I'll be in contact with you a little bit later today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Here.